5 ID badges and 5 wristwatches sat inside a single plastic bag for 12 years. An excavator pulled them out of a bio-waste pit, buried under tons of decayed animal remains. It happened in March 2005, on the edge of a small town called Haven Brook, Ohio. A place where an old meat packing plant once stood, Riverbend Packing, Plant 3. Now it was just cracked concrete, rusted beams, and the kind of past that doesn't air out, no matter how long you leave the windows open. A construction crew was clearing the lot for a new shopping center. On paper, it was a normal project. In reality, it was the kind of quiet that feels like it's hiding something. 18 hours before the discovery, Detective Rachel Morgan from the sheriff's office got a call. The report sounded boring, routine check on an abandoned industrial site. Those are the calls that often stop being routine the second you step out of the car. Rachel arrived around 7 in the morning. Cold air. Low clouds. Heavy equipment. Workers cracking jokes the way people do when they're scared and don't want anyone to notice. An older man in a work jacket walked up and handed her a bag. The plastic was smeared with black sludge, like someone dipped it in old oil. He said it calmly, like a man who had run out of surprise years ago, found this in the pit. Looks like documents and watches. Thought you'd want it. Before we go any further, type your city in the comments. I'm genuinely curious where you're listening from. And subscribe, because stories like this love silence, but truth loves witnesses. Rachel opened the bag. Inside were 5 factory passes. Not modern plastic cards. Old laminated badges from the early 90s. Each one had a photo, a name, an employee number, and a stamp, Plant 3. Next to them were 5 wristwatches. Every single one had stopped. And every single one was stopped at a different time. The names on the badges were Mark Dawson, Eric Hall, Brian Cole, Jason Reed, Tyler Brooks. Rachel called records and asked for missing persons files from 1993 tied to those names. The answer came back fast. Too fast. Because this wasn't new. All 5 belonged to the same case. A night shift vanished on March 15, 1993. Vanished like someone unplugged 5 human beings from the wall. The investigation had been loud for a year. Search teams. Interviews. Tips. Rumors. Headlines. Then, nothing. No bodies. No proof. No closure. Just a cold file that got quietly shut and pushed into a drawer. Rachel went back to the station and pulled the old folder. Yellowed paper. Rusted staples. But the fear inside it still felt fresh. 2 names stood out in the original investigation. 2 people who, on paper, were the last to see that shift alive. First, Linda Harris, the head accountant. In 1993, she was 45. Her signature was on a shipment form stamped 3 a.m. March 16, even though she was never supposed to be there at night. A year after the disappearance, investigators uncovered her fraud. Double books. Product moving off the record. Fake reports. She had a motive. A week before the shift vanished, the night foreman, Mark Dawson, had threatened to expose her. Witnesses said he demanded a bigger cut. Loudly. Publicly. Like he wanted the walls to hear him too. Second, Frank Miller, a maintenance mechanic. 38 years old. He claimed he worked that night but left around 11:30 p.m. with a severe headache. Neighbors could not confirm he ever came home, and the next morning, Frank showed up at work wearing someone else's shirt. After the plant closed, Frank got rich fast. In the mid-90s, he opened an auto shop. And that shop became successful in a town that was barely breathing. There was also the official night supervisor, Harold Grant. But Grant had a solid alibi. He stayed in the admin building all night. Security logs backed it up. So did camera footage from a bank across the street. Grant died of a heart attack in 2004. 1 year before the excavator pulled the bag out of the ground. Rachel started with Linda Harris. Linda lived not far from the old plant. A brick building. Narrow stairs. Mailboxes that smelled like everyone else's life. The door didn't open right away. First, a shuffle. Then a lock. Then a chain. Gray hair. Shaky hands. And the leftover outline of someone who used to hold herself together better. Linda spoke quietly. I knew you'd come. I saw the news about the construction. In her kitchen, she brewed tea slowly, carefully, like every sound might wake the past up. 12 years, she said. I waited. I knew the truth would surface. Rachel asked, tell me about the night of March 15, 1993. Linda sat down, wrapped both hands around her mug like it was a life preserver. My daughter was in the hospital. Appendicitis. I stayed with her until 2 in the morning. Then I drove home to grab her things. The doctor said surgery in the morning. She needed her favorite toy. Rachel kept her voice calm. Your signature is on a form stamped 3 a.m. Linda didn't look away. I stopped at the plant on the way. I knew I might not make it later. The paperwork was urgent. She swallowed. I got there around 2:30. And it was quiet, too quiet. Usually you hear machines, voices, metal. That night, it was empty. Rachel leaned in. What did you do? I went looking for Mark Dawson. He had to sign an intake report. But the floor was empty. Linda closed her eyes. Just dark stains on the concrete near the tables. I panicked. I ran. I went to my office, signed the documents myself, and drove back to the hospital. Rachel asked the obvious question, why didn't you call the police? Linda stared down at the mug. I was terrified. I was committing fraud. Dawson was threatening me. If anyone found bodies, I'd be the first suspect. I had a motive. And I had no alibi for that hour. Rachel took notes. Linda's sounded like truth. Or someone who had rehearsed a lie for 12 years until it became a memory. Next was Frank Miller. His auto shop looked like a brochure, clean lot, glass walls, expensive cars, polished steel. Success that practically begged you not to ask how it happened. Frank greeted Rachel with controlled politeness. Gray at the temples. A pricey suit. The calm smile of a man who's used to winning conversations. Detective Morgan. You're here about 93. He nodded before she could answer. I heard about the find. I figured you'd come. Rachel said, tell me about that night. Frank spread his hands. I worked until about 11:30. Fixed the conveyor. Got a bad headache. Nausea. I went home. How did you get home? On foot. Buses were done for the night. Neighbors didn't see you. It was dark. I cut through back streets. And honestly, who remembers details like that after 12 years? Rachel didn't flinch. And the shirt? Why were you wearing someone else's shirt the next morning? Frank paused. For a split second, his left cheek twitched, one of those tiny involuntary movements that often tell the truth before words do. I didn't sleep at home, he said. I stayed with a woman. She was married. Didn't want anyone to know. Rachel asked, name? Frank shrugged. Don't remember. A one-time thing. Rachel watched him closely. People who don't remember the name usually remember something. Perfume. Neighborhood. The color of the couch. Frank remembered nothing. Too convenient. So Rachel asked the question that always hurts confident men, where did the money come from to start this business? Frank smiled. I saved. Sold my dad's car. Borrowed from friends. Documents? He shrugged again. 12 years ago. Of course I don't have them. A dead end. But Rachel noticed something else. Frank kept touching the cuff on his left wrist. Not style. A nervous anchor. The way people cling to control when panic is climbing inside them. That evening, Rachel laid the evidence out again. 5 watches. 5 different stop times, 2:14, 2:47, 3:15, 3:58, 4:47, almost 3 hours apart. That didn't look like one fast attack. It looked like a process. One by one. Someone who was not in a hurry. Records gave her another piece. The plant had an old electronic check system. Workers tapped their badge once an hour at a reader. All 5 men checked in normally until 2 a.m. Then the signal stopped. The next day, Rachel arranged a face-to-face meeting. Linda and Frank sat across from each other at a table and avoided eye contact like a look could become evidence. Rachel said, "I have reason to believe you're both hiding something." Linda broke first, her voice shook. "Fine. I saw more than I told you." She looked at Frank. "When I arrived, I ran into him. He was coming out of the processing floor. There were dark stains on his shirt." Frank jumped up. "She's lying. I left at 11:30. Rachel didn't raise her voice. "Then why the stains?" Frank exhaled and sat back down like a man who realized the performance was over. "All right," he said. "I came back. Around 3. I forgot my tools. Expensive ones. When I got there, the floor was empty. Blood on the concrete. I panicked. I tried to wipe it. Then I saw Linda coming in. We both freaked out." Linda nodded. "We decided to stay quiet. We both had no alibi. We were both there. They would have blamed us." Rachel asked, "What else did you see?" They glanced at each other. "There was a truck," Frank said. "A refrigerated box truck. Parked at the loading dock. That was unusual for the night shift. And it had a logo," Linda added. "Meat Trade. A competitor." Rachel checked the old business files. Meat Trade belonged to a man named Peterson. The company shut down in 1995. The name Peterson was common. But the coincidence was too sharp to ignore. Then forensics returned something that changed the air. 6 sets of fingerprints were on the badges. 5 were the missing men. 1 was unknown. The print was partial, but usable. Rachel went back to Linda. "Who else had access to the floor at night?" "The supervisor," Linda said, "but he stayed in admin as security, but the usual guard was sick." "No replacement." Then she hesitated. "And the night watchman. Name?" Linda frowned. "Don't remember. Quiet. Invisible. Always said hello." Frank added, "He always made tea. Huge thermos. Said it was herbal, good for you. Everyone drank it, Dawson especially. Said it helped him stay sharp." The picture started forming. Linda suddenly remembered something and went pale. "A week before it happened, I saw the watchman talking to Dawson. Dawson was yelling. The watchman just stood there, stone-faced. Then Dawson stormed off. And the watchman smiled. Not a friendly smile. Something else. But suspicion wasn't proof. Rachel did what good detectives do. She stopped chasing the loud people. And went looking for the quiet one. That's when the twist arrived. The older man who originally handed her the bag, Walter, called her. "Detective," he said, "I remembered something. In '93, I worked at that plant too. Day shift. Maybe it helps." Rachel met him at a roadside diner. The kind that smells like bacon grease and permanent exhaustion. Walter was talkative. "I remember that morning," he said. "I came in at 6, and the police were everywhere. They said the night shift was missing." "Did you know the men?" "Sure. Dawson was rough. Always pushing people. The others weren't saints either. Then Walter added, a little too casually, only Linda was decent. Always polite. Rachel's eyes narrowed. Linda Harris? Yeah. Good woman. Always said hello. Something about his tone felt personal. Rachel showed him the photos again. Recognize them? Walter nodded quickly. Of course. That's Dawson. That's Hall. Honestly, they were dirtbags. They stole. They blackmailed Linda. Rachel's voice stayed neutral. How do you know about blackmail? Walter shifted. Rumors. Small town. Everyone knew. After the meeting, Rachel ran his background. And the truth didn't hit like a punch. It hit like a number. Walter did work at the plant in 1993. He quit 1 month after the disappearance, then he worked security jobs for years. And in 1994, he started a company. Meat Trade. Rachel read it twice. Then a third time. Owner, Walter Peterson. Now a retired man. Picking up side work as a watchman. Rachel called Linda. Do you remember the night watchman's last name? Linda was silent for a long time. Then she whispered, it started with a P. I think. Peterson. Rachel requested the full employee lists from 1993. And saw something strange. 2 men with nearly identical information. Walter Peterson, day shift loader. Pete Peterson, night watchman. Rachel pulled their applications and froze. They were the same person. 2 IDs. 2 employee numbers. 2 roles. Day shift and night shift never overlapped. No one ever connected the dots. A perfect setup for someone who wanted to be invisible. Rachel drove back to Linda with Walter's photo. Is this him? Linda stared. Looks like him, but it's been 12 years. Frank didn't hesitate. That's him. I know it. Even his walk. He had this little bounce, like he was stepping over something no one else could see. Still, that wasn't enough. Rachel needed something solid. She called Walter in for a conversation, using the excuse of new evidence. He arrived calm. Almost helpful. What can I do for you, detective? Rachel placed old photos of the plant on the table. Recognize these? Sure. That's the line. That's the cold room. Rachel slid another photo over. The entry booth. The night checkpoint. The light was on. Walter nodded. Gatehouse. Everyone went through there. Rachel asked quietly, you said you worked days. How do you know what it looked like at night? A pause. A micro-pause. Just long enough. I stayed late sometimes. Rachel opened the logs. Day shift clocked out on time. But the night watchman clocked in all night. Funny coincidence. Walter smiled. Lots of Petersons in the world. Rachel kept her voice soft. We're going to take your fingerprints. Standard procedure. He tensed. Why? To clear you. Walter gave the prints. And Rachel noticed the detail that mattered. He pressed the ink pad with his left hand. A lefty. An older bloodstain analysis suggested the killer's dominant side matched. Linda and Frank were right-handed. Rachel pushed again. We have witnesses who saw your truck at the dock that night. Walter snapped, impossible. I didn't own that company yet. Rachel didn't move. I didn't say Meat Trade. Walter stood up. I'm leaving. Rachel didn't stop him. Sometimes you let a man walk out the door because he's about to hand you the mistake you need. After that came paper trails. Military service. Medical training. Access. Knowledge. How to sedate someone quietly. How to move bodies without panic. That night, Linda called Rachel on her own. Detective. I remember something else. The watchman had a habit. He took pictures. A small camera. Once I realized, he was photographing me. Secretly. Rachel obtained a warrant. The search changed everything. In Walter's home, they found an album. Hundreds of photos of Linda Harris. At work. On the sidewalk. In a store. In a park with her daughter. Taken from a distance. Hidden. Organized. 8 years of surveillance turned into paper. They also found a journal. The last entry was dated March 14, 1993. Tomorrow they will pay for humiliating her. She will be free. Everything is ready. Sleeping pills in the tea. One at a time to the basement, fast and quiet. By morning I will be clean. The truck is waiting. He was arrested. For the first 2 hours, he said nothing. His attorney said exactly what attorneys say when it smells like life in prison: a diary proves nothing. Photos aren't a crime. Prints on badges make sense. He worked the gate. Rachel knew the weak point. Without bodies, this could fall apart. So she went back to the site with ground-penetrating radar. They scanned everything. Then the device lit up under a section of old concrete. A hollow space. A maintenance basement no new owner even knew existed. They broke the floor. Inside were 5 bodies, wrapped in industrial plastic. The cold and the sealed air preserved them in a way that made everyone wish it hadn't. The medical examiner confirmed the cause of death. Stab wounds. Precise. Professional. And in their stomachs, barbiturates. They brought Walter to the scene. He stood at the edge of the open basement and looked down like it was just a hole. No shaking. No tears. No panic. Rachel asked, "You knew about this basement?" Walter shrugged. All the old workers knew. A convenient place for storage. A convenient place for hiding. He said it like it was normal. Back at the station, he still tried to hold the line. The attorney demanded release. No direct proof. No confession. So Rachel did the move detectives don't like to admit works. She brought Linda Harris in. The moment Linda entered the room, Walter reacted. A shift in the jaw. Fists tightening. Eyes turning away. Rachel said, "Linda, tell him what you saw that night." Linda looked at him. There was no anger in her face. Just fear. She whispered, "You weren't supposed to find out." Never. Walter snapped like a valve finally breaking. "I did everything clean. Nobody would have known." That was the first crack. The attorney tried to interrupt. Too late. Walter couldn't stop talking. "They humiliated you. Every day. Dawson called you trash. Hall laughed behind your back. All of them laughed. Linda cried. That's not a reason to kill people." Walter turned his head slowly. "For you, no. You're too kind. But I saw you crying after they cornered you. I saw the bruises you hid. Your husband, right?" Rachel clicked on the recorder. "Tell me how it happened, Walter." Walter sat down. Folded his hands. Spoke like he was reading instructions. "On March 14th, I heard Dawson blackmailing Linda. He demanded more money. He threatened to tell her husband. He was jealous. Drunk. He would have killed her. And you decided to protect her." "I decided to remove the problem." "The entire problem. How did you do it?" "Simple. March 15th, I brewed tea with barbiturates. Army dosage. I offered it around 11. Everyone drank my tea. They trusted me. By midnight they started falling asleep. I tied them up one by one and carried them into the basement through the service access. Why not kill them immediately? I needed time. I tapped their badges at the reader every hour to make it look like they were working. And the watches. I took them off one by one and broke them to confuse time of death. Then I killed them one by one. Paul first. He was strong. Then Cole. Then Reed. Then Brooks. Dawson last. I wanted him to see. Linda left the room. Rachel asked, "How did you get rid of the evidence?" I washed everything with bleach. Not all of it. I knew Linda sometimes came in late when her kid got sick. I left a little blood so she'd panic and leave. I didn't want her suspected. And Frank Miller? Unexpected. I didn't think he'd come back for his tools. I had to hide. Lucky for me, he and Linda chose silence. Otherwise, I would have had to handle them too. Rachel asked, "The knife?" Melted it. I had a small forge in my garage. A hobby. Why didn't you move the bodies in the truck? I planned to. The truck was ready. But in the morning, the panic started. Police. Search. I improvised. I was the first one to report it. The classic move, he said, almost proud. The criminal raises the alarm. Later that night, I came back. I poured concrete over the basement. The trial wa.